Countdown Till Christmas is brought to you by Princess Grams. Personalized, magical, musical greetings from your favorite characters. Learn more and send one at princessgrams.com. Hello. Thank you for coming back to see Sasha and me today. She's been very sleepy lately. Well, I hope you're as excited as I am to find out what's in our Advent calendar for today, December the 12th. Let's see. Oh my, look at this. It's a very handsome nutcracker. Just like in the Tchaikovsky ballet, the Nutcracker, maybe you know that one. Have you ever seen it? It's very beautiful. And I bet you've at least heard the music if you haven't seen it. Probably the most famous one is the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. It goes like this. Bum 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 ba da 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 dum. Well, why don't we find a nice place for our friend the Nutcracker on the Christmas tree? How about here? Did you know that Nutcracker dolls were first made in Germany? Nutcrackers are also used to crack nuts, but decorative ones were first made in the late 1600s. They were given as gifts and eventually became part of our Christmas traditions. Well, like nutcrackers and Christmas trees inside our homes, a lot of our ideas about Christmas came from Germany. And this globe also comes from Germany, which is why it says Deutschland here, which is what Germans call their country. Christmas in Germany is very magical. The decorations, music, and joyfulness of the season seem to spread over all the cities. One special tradition that you will also find in other countries around Europe are Christmas markets. They sell decorations, gifts, special foods, and more. Some are even themed, like this one in Esslingen, where there's a medieval-inspired market. But what is really special about a German Weihnachtsmarkt is that it is a place to gather with friends and share special foods, like these Kartoffelpuffen, which are potato pancakes, kind of like latkes. They're very delicious, and you have them with applesauce, like you see here. And Brezeln, which are soft pretzels. They heat them up for you. Or you can drink a steaming mug of Glühwein or Kinderpunsch. And sometimes people also go ice skating, or they just come together to visit in a very festive place. Another German custom I really enjoy, and maybe you do too, that's baking Christmas cookies with friends. One of my dearest German friends has already baked a lot of delicious cookies this year. Wouldn't you like to eat some of these? Many children in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland look forward to receiving presents from the Christkind, or Christ child, who comes early in the evening on Christmas Eve. Families gather for their biggest celebrations on Christmas Eve, and children get to open their presents before bed. Well, do you know how to wish someone Merry Christmas in German? It is Frohe Weihnachten. Why don't we try that together? Frohe Weihnachten. Weihnachten. Frohe Weihnachten. Very nice. Frohe Weihnachten. Do you remember the German song we started learning yesterday that was all about Christmas trees? Why don't we sing the first part together, and then we'll learn the second. And as a reminder, the lyrics are, O Christmas tree, how lovely are thy branches. And we just sing that 2 times. Ready? O Christmas tree, how lovely are thy branches. O Christmas tree, how lovely are thy branches. Very nice. Well, the second part goes like this. Not only green when summer's here, but in the coldest time of year. O Christmas tree, how lovely are thy branches. Now we know why the branches are so lovely. It's because they stay green all year long. So our new line is, not only green when summer's here, but in the coldest time of year. And in places like Germany, where the winter is cold and the leaves fall off most of the trees, you can imagine how happy it makes people to see the green of these trees, especially when they're covered with snow. So again, not only green when summer's here, but in the coldest time of year. And the last part you already know. O Christmas tree, how lovely are thy branches. Well, why don't we try singing that 2 times together now, the second part. Not only green when summer's here, but in the coldest time of year. O Christmas tree, how lovely are thy branches. One more time. Not only green when summer's here, but in the coldest time of year. O Christmas tree, how lovely are thy branches. That was lovely. And tomorrow we'll put the whole song together. But for now, it's time for our story of the day. And it's called A Story of the Christ Child, which is based on a German legend and written by Elizabeth Harrison. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, on the night before Christmas, a little child was wandering all alone through the streets of a great city. There were many people on the street, fathers and mothers, sisters and brothers, uncles and aunts, and even gray-haired grandfathers and grandmothers, all of whom were hurrying home with bundles of presents for each other and for their little ones. Fine carriages rolled by, express wagons rattled past, even old carts were pressed into service, and all things seemed in a hurry and glad with expectation of the coming Christmas morning. From some of the windows, bright lights were already beginning to stream until it was almost as bright as day. But the little child seemed to have no home and wandered about listlessly from street to street. No one took any notice of him, except perhaps Jack Frost, who bit his bare toes and made the ends of his fingers tingle. The north wind, too, seemed to notice the child, for it blew against him and pierced his ragged garments through and through, causing him to shiver with cold. Home after home he passed, looking with longing eyes through the windows, in upon the glad, happy children, most of whom were helping trim the Christmas tree for the coming morrow. Surely, said the child to himself, where there is so much gladness and happiness, some of it may be for me. So with timid steps he approached a large and handsome house. Through the windows he could see a tall and stately Christmas tree already lighted. Many presents hung upon it. Its green boughs were trimmed with gold and silver ornaments. Slowly he climbed up the broad steps and gently rapped at the door. It was opened by a large manservant. He had a kindly face, although his voice was deep and gruff. He looked at the little child for a moment, then sadly shook his head and said, "Go down off the steps. There's no room here for such as you." He looked sorry as he spoke. Possibly he remembered his own little ones at home and he was glad that they were not out in this cold and bitter night. Through the open door a bright light shone, and the warm air, filled with the fragrance of the Christmas pine, rushed out from the inner room and greeted the little wanderer with a kiss. As the child turned back into the cold and darkness, he wondered why the footman had spoken thus, for surely, thought he, those little children would love to have another companion join them in their joyous Christmas celebration. But the little children inside did not even know that he had knocked at the door. Again and again, the little child rapped softly at door or window pane. At each place, he was refused admission. One mother feared he might have some ugly disease which her darlings would catch. Another father said he had only enough to spare for his own children, and none for beggars. Still another told him to go home where he belonged and not to trouble other folks. The hours passed, later grew the night, and colder grew the wind, and darker seemed the street. Farther and farther the little one wandered. There was scarcely anyone left upon the street by this time, and the few who remained did not seem to see the child, when suddenly, ahead of him, there appeared a bright, single ray of light. It shone through the darkness into the child's eyes. He looked up smilingly and said, "I will go where the small light beckons. Perhaps they will share their Christmas with me." Hurrying past all the other houses, he soon reached the end of the street and went straight up to the window from which the light was streaming. It was a poor little low house, but the child cared not for that. The light seemed still to call him in. From what do you suppose the light came? Nothing but a tallow candle, which had been placed in an old cup with a broken handle in the window, as a glad token of Christmas Eve. There was neither curtain nor shade to the small square window, and as the little child looked in, he saw standing upon a neat wooden table a branch of Christmas tree. The room was plainly furnished, but it was clean. Near the fireplace sat a lovely-faced mother with a little 2-year-old on her knee and an older child beside her. The 2 children were looking into their mother's face and listening to a story. She must have been telling them a Christmas story, I think. A few bright coals were burning in the fireplace, and all seemed light and warm within. The little wanderer crept closer and closer to the window pane. So sweet was the mother's face, so loving seemed the little children, that at last he took courage and tapped gently, very gently, on the door. The mother stopped talking. The little children looked up. "What was that, Mother?" asked the little girl at her side. "I think it was someone rapping on the door," replied the mother. "Run as quickly as you can and open it, dear, for it is a bitter cold night to keep anyone waiting in this storm." "Oh, Mother, I think it was the bough of the tree tapping against the window pane," said the little girl. "Do please go on with our story." Again the little wanderer tapped upon the door. My child," exclaimed the mother, rising. "That certainly was a rap on the door. Run quickly and open it. No one must be left out in the cold on our beautiful Christmas Eve." The child ran to the door and threw it wide open. The mother saw the ragged stranger standing without, cold and shivering, with bare head and almost bare feet. She held out both hands and drew him into the warm, bright room. "You poor, dear child," was all she said, and putting her arms around him, she drew him close to her breast. "He is very cold, my children," she exclaimed. "We must warm him. And," added the little girl, "we must love him and give him some of our Christmas too." "Yes," said the mother, "but first let us warm him." The mother sat down by the fire with the little child on her lap, and her own little ones warmed his half-frozen hands in theirs. The mother smoothed his tangled curls and, bending low over his head, kissed the child's face. She gathered the 3 little ones in her arms, and the candle and the firelight shone over them. For a moment the room was very still. By and by the little girl said softly to her mother, "May we not light the Christmas tree and let him see how beautiful it looks?" "Yes," said the mother. With that, she seated the child on a low stool beside the fire and went herself to fetch the few simple ornaments which from year to year she had saved for her children's Christmas tree. They were soon so busy that they did not notice the room had filled with a strange and brilliant light. They turned and looked at the spot where the little wanderer sat. His ragged clothes had changed to garments white and beautiful. His tangled curls seemed like a halo of golden light about his head. But most glorious of all was his face, which shone with a light so dazzling that they could scarcely look upon it. In silent wonder, they gazed at the child. Their little room seemed to grow larger and larger until it was as wide as the whole world. The roof of their low house seemed to expand and rise until it reached the sky. With a sweet and gentle smile, the wonderful child looked upon them for a moment, and then slowly rose and floated through the air, above the treetops, beyond the church spire, higher even than the clouds themselves, until he appeared to them to be a shining star in the sky above. At last he disappeared from sight. The astonished children turned in a hushed awe to their mother and said in a whisper, "Oh, Mother, it was the Christ child, was it not?" And the mother answered in a low tone, "Yes." And it is said, dear children, that each Christmas Eve, the little Christ child wanders through some town or village, and those who receive him and take him into their homes and hearts have given to them this marvelous vision which is denied to others. Why don't we end our time together today with another Christmas carol? And this one is one of my favorite Austrian carols. I'll sing it first in German and then in English, and if you'd like to join me, please do. Stille Nacht, heilige Nacht, alles schlaft, einsam wacht, nur das traute hochheilige Paar. Holde Knabe im lockigen Haar, schlaf in himmlischer Ruhe, schlaf in himmlischer Ruhe. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild. Sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. Thank you so much for coming back again today. It was very nice to see you. I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this video,
please like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. That not only encourages me, it also makes a big difference to my channel and helps others find videos they would enjoy too. Wishing you a joyful season and a happy day. I'll see you tomorrow.